Let's talk about children now. Some gains have been made in terms of children's rights, but much more still needs to be done. That's according to the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund ahead of World Children's Day later this month. It hosted a National Children's Day dialogue this week to spark conversation and inspire solutions. Many would argue we need them in South Africa. We're joined now by the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. That's Dr Linda Ncube-Nkomo. Thank you for being with us. Doctor, let's start with the global picture. It's hard to believe that children are being protected, looking at what is going on in war zones around the world. But you do say there are some gains. So let's start with some hope. What gains have been made?
Good evening, Francis, and thank you to you and your viewers for hosting us this evening. The gains that we can talk about is that there is growing awareness at an overall level on children's rights. And there are countries where the systems are strong, the communities, the environments that are required for children's rights to thrive exist. But sadly, South Africa is not one of the countries where we are at a point where we would really want to be yet.
Let's just look at South Africa then. Violence is a major problem. An increase in attempted murder, even though murders came down for children. A recent study finding that 1 in 3 South Africans, children, have experienced some form of sexual abuse. We know that many have experienced violent physical abuse. So you're saying nothing is moving the needle right now?
Well, yeah, we know the dialogue we had yesterday. We had a dialogue yesterday, and we were looking particularly at child safety and protection in South Africa. And now in the context of South Africa, what we found, based on a study that was done of about 50 countries, we found that the South African environment is strongly reliant on NGOs. And we need to move from a reliance on NGOs to where there is an integration of safe homes, safe communities, strong institutions for the protection of children to be fully realized.
And sometimes that reliance is controversial. Recently, there was some controversy with the Social Development Department saying it's got procedures in place, for example, for abandoned babies. But some NGOs are providing those safe boxes for women to safely abandon their babies. And they are arguing that government is actually not doing much. They have to step in. Those procedures may exist, but they're not being implemented. Where do you stand on an issue like that?
On an issue like that, it's about what's the best thing for that child that's being put in a box. So if there isn't a system that enables them to be given the safety and the protection that they have a right to, then we're going to see the defaulting to the reliance on NGOs, which is what an inductive study on South Africa, like I've just mentioned, showed, that we've got a stronger reliance on NGOs. And we need to move from that reliance on NGOs to where the government mechanisms can work such that there is an integrated and a holistic approach that's in the best interest of the child.
So right now we have a legal framework, but you're saying on the ground it's not working, the system is not working.
On the ground, we've got a legal framework that talks about the rights of children holistically. So if we were to look at it broadly rather than just zeroing in on abandoned babies, you're going to find that there is Section 28 of the Bill of Rights is talking about children's rights. But to what extent do people who have got children in their care as parents, as caregivers, know that such a Section 28 exists? Because that's got to be our starting point. Everybody understanding what the rights of children are and playing their part in the realization of those roles. Otherwise, we'll continue to have intellectual arguments around what should work, what's not working, what then do we do if it's not working, instead of saying, what do we need to do to get the system to integrate and work well in the interests of children?
Well, were there inspired solutions, ideas about where to start coming from your dialogue this week?
Well, from the dialogue that we had this week, there were so many takeaways from there. There were such deep conversations that were coming out of there. And I think one of the key takeaways, because the unsafest place for most children is the home, one of the key takeaways was each caregiver taking the time to make sure that the home in which they've put their child is in fact safe, that the child is actually protected. Because a lot of children, COVID showed us that a lot of children are sexually abused in the home. Yeah. So we cannot
But sometimes that's the caregiver doing it. So then what?
That's the point, that we've got to make sure that we become part of the system that makes sure that children are safe. Because if a caregiver is unsafe for a child or creating an unsafe environment, then each one of us has got the responsibility to then escalate that to the social workers, to the justice system, to kick in for us to make sure that children's rights can be realized.
So let me end it here. What do you do if, say, you suspect that a child who is living next door to you is being abused? You're not sure, you suspect. What do you do?
The first place you'd want to go to is the police, to make that report so that an investigation with the social system can kick in to investigate what the circumstances of those children are. And that's where the immaturity of South Africa is, that the institutions drop the ball, and as a result, children continue to be unsafe and unprotected, even where reports have been made.
All right, protect the children. Thank you very much for that update. And we were in conversation with CEO of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, Dr. Linda Ncube-Nkomo.